in for the night. And I'm in church and I get a phone call from Kim Duck. No, no problem. The city just called me, just not. The council meets on Tuesday. They meet every Tuesday.
They have regular meeting, the second at 4, and they have workshops. They're always there.
And I've talked to the mayor.
Let's
We can do our next do Wednesday, next with session.
Right. How's it going?
You don't want to do that. There's the worker.
Morning, gentlemen.
Hasn't started yet.
You too, Brian.
Morning.
Oh, he hasn't started this.
March 16th. Under a thought.
Oh, it's just wonderful. It's really fun trying to eat with your left hand.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Do other things.
I'm
with your
doing
left hand.
okay. And you?
Frustrated, this darn thing isn't working right. I hate tech stuff. It's making me angry,
I
especially because I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, what could it be? You know, because it's saying the video, that's not working. It's like, why isn't it working? It's chosen. There it is. Oh, I was like, why the heck is it doing that?
I just throw it in and I.
Hope it turned on.
My brother died.
Oh, that's what.
Yeah, he just kept doing it.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Good to see everybody.
No.
What they say.
It's all nice and warm when I see you. I think that the island. Can't wait to go back.
That was quite a crowd.
Are you guys any closer to the director? I've been happy the other night. I was like, yeah, I think you're working on it, but it's
About 25,000.
That's right. Stop down Chandler.
Well, I don't know.
You probably know.
Still got a lot.
It's kind of work on that.
January, February, for the whole 2 months that we get, that's a lot of revenue.
Well, I know, but apparently.
Oh,
that's
wow.
when
People that
was one of the
haven't
driver
paid yet.
operators said, "Well, I can't see."
About 20, somewhere around
They had stopped.
$20,000.
I heard what,
Well, they would
Just math, talking about,
just,
do that.
I don't like acid lot.
The other thing is,
Guys were.
oh, well,
Shoots that,
I'm gonna have
you know, more consistent updates on what's going on.
a person I'd like to hire.
81 and 32.
Yeah, 60 to 70. But
That's a piece
she would also be willing to
Yeah.
start out
People
on
that run data.
contract
Remind them to read what you're.
and build, as we get money.
Because I always say,
Especially if that.
which one organization will.
Yeah, and then.
You're right, though, there's some just want pictures. The guy that mentioned the thing about Connor is.
So, we're
I
thinking,
know,
that's the mechanism that we're thinking.
I'm not stressed.
Yeah. And we're.
Can't move it now.
They're because projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I built everything in my company.
I heard a lot less than plenty.
You hear it like once, I hear it multiple times, like they try to tell.
No, I know you do. You've been there a long time.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that's really exciting. just get that right person.
Yeah, I mean, just,
Like the kind of person that, like,
someone says something, you say,
big enough.
Yeah.
Oh.
What
When you get somebody who has that little bit of, that's how you're supposed to do it.
That person that I'm talking about
was Saturday,
is,
Saturday's the one you mentioned about driving out, seeing.
come on, hold up.
I was
He's
just
not
like,
used to it.
yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So I was talking to his business edge.
Yeah, he was one of those.
Yeah.
She's,
I mean, like,
she's.
Harry's mentioned it before, but it's.
Oh, yeah.
The sign that one.
Harry was the weakest thing.
But not-
But I mean, it's.
You know, Harry.
I drove a lot of areas. Yeah, it's a.
And that is their fault. Ended up.
Well, it's not like it's permanent.
Wait till they start building.
She's still.
Yeah.
Some kind of.
Harry was a BC, so he's got lots of,
Land.
he's got lots of.
Yeah. Eileen.
I believe it.
I had a included.
You do, but
A couple of my board members said, "Oh, maybe we ought to,
He just,
you know, get it out of." I'm saying,
yeah,
whatever you guys want, but I'm gonna tell, they're all gonna expect a lot more money.
well, yeah, if you take someone like looking at the other thing too, I think. Or two is just the idea of like, once the human sitting.
Yeah.
These are like, I was just talking with the board of directors of, or the chairman of the board for Kairos, which does like these regional kind of faith and business crossovers that we really good speakers. And they haven't had, but they don't have an executive director. And one of the things I was telling him is like, like, think about the amount of transplants that happen. So it's, you know, sitting the board past that and jump off. There's enough Christians, you know, boys who know what Kairos is. That if we just said, let's launch Kairos and boys, it would happen.
Yeah.
But the problem is when they go, hey, who are the speakers? Can somebody send me a list of the last 3 years of speakers? That person isn't somebody just. I think that there's a lot of revenue for the chamber as soon as there's somebody there. Catch up.
Yeah.
Somebody there to say, yep, they brought me on, and here's my vision for the chamber and for businesses like Stevens.
Oh, yeah.
Just give around, tell everybody. And I know I know you guys know that, but.
Morning.
Get elbow deep in the slot working, and it's sometimes hard to pick your head back up and remember, like, oh, yeah, there's some.
Yeah.
How are you doing, sir?
Good question. I figured it out.
Did,
24 degrees is way too damn cold though.
did you, have any luck on where I could get the some insurance?
On your, oh, yeah, I have two.
I would think it's not super expensive for Vietnam, but
No,
since the Communist Party it's technically a socialist country, but it's run by the Communist Party of Vietnam.
so my question to them was, they have general rate.
Yeah.
And what it's gonna come down to would be what you do for a living.
Yep.
And then how many people are doing that kind of thing.
Yep.
Who's the
I just,
big concern, right?
really what I want is, I don't even need a lot. What I want is a quick hand to
Right.
negotiation and extraction.
Yeah, somebody just give them $100,000 and reach you out,
Yeah.
or send somebody in.
Uh-huh.
take you out, Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's like tow insurance. I don't care about paying for the tow. I call one number and get the tow truck to show up. That's
Yeah,
my,
yeah,
and it might be so pricey, it doesn't make a difference, but I thought I would be remiss to not inquire.
well, you'll check and then find out when you get back after 6 months again.
Yeah. Oh, that was only $150.
Yeah.
But, yeah, my kids, we had to do some research, like, can we bring our Bible? Like, I don't know.
Hmm.
And I said, on our passports, we put Christian. I said, if they don't want us, and then my passport photo doesn't have this period.
Oh.
And like, it gives you, when you upload to Vietnam's little visa server. And, it says 62% match.
Oh.
Like for annual review, and I was like, oh man, what am I whole family? Do? I don't, so it came through 70 jars later. But a funny one was looking like you. And I think at the time I thought I had 15 pounds more muscle. I found out Cape Town, South Africa. And then the next day, I had an entrepreneurs organization meeting. Moved back.
Oh, my God, early morning when I will buy a new member.
Jump in here this morning.
lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Didn't have to-
Remember what it was.
The Bible.
We're Bible reading around here.
Oh,
Yeah, so I flew down back from Cape Cod, South Africa.
I wanted to pay. I wanted to.
Who's this thing today? And then next day,
I'm sure.
I'm sure. I climbed that small house.
Just say, it's really, it's
So back.
Just
So my going, I go to Canada.
Seems to me.
On my way.
Fine, take 14 on it.
I said, where they have a lot of time on that.
Oh, look at the
Saw
road.
my past.
I don't.
Saw
It's not you.
in South Africa. You did channel 10 years back. That's a no-no. Because.
That makes me happy. I've got more.
It's in the good side.
It's just a sweatshirt.
Oh, now that pepper, like.
I don't, yeah.
Let me first one.
Oh, coming from you, it's a huge compliment. Coming from you, I just.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I did find out that actually, if you guys see burnout.
Okay, little schmucker also, I did not know. You know, just like a wrap, whatever. And you have a bird, right? And I have a thing for like bird. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna say I'm bird. Dude, I didn't get, look at. I didn't get paper. Well, I saw that. I did. I love it. I love it. It's in my spot. I need to get,
Jiu-jitsu instructor. This is like me punching somebody as hard as I can.
volunteers stuff. I haven't forgotten. It's been a very busy week.
And you hear like shot it, it's like, yeah, this big trippy chart base, you know, it's like, I want to shoot us, that's,
Okay, so.
and it is, I mean, it's hard. But, like,
So, you're just finishing the trade one.
That might help mix up. Like, why is
Well, one by.
it?
10 years old.
Ah,
We're
I want to show you
playing
the
golf
picture.
there.
Oh, yes,
And,
please. It's.
he was just like, oh, what's the man? We didn't realize that in Canada, the dog owners,
Talk about it, yeah.
there's no
So it
tournament
beats
tonight.
score.
I mean.
Ooh, animal
this is
print.
going on.
Okay. I
So he said, hey,
Animal print.
Greg, go back. We gave him all kinds of money, gave him a list
Oh,
of everything,
yeah.
hot dogs.
I do like.
So he goes,
I like
I
that.
went back.
So
Pretty
it's,
soon I
I'm
turned around,
really about,
here's Greg
and I do like a zebra.
driving his car,
I have a
and three
cat.
mounted police following after him. And they come out and said,
Cocktail party this summer.
who's the father? His mom said,
I think.
You know,
that
yeah.
I
Rod fell for it in Kennedy.
I agree, with you, and I have been.
Didn't know that.
Like, I know.
And he said, why did
I
you
have
send them?
found
I said,
right,
because we didn't realize
with the
after
right.
I told him,
So I have.
there's no way. Keep on going.
he's crazy, he just keep hiking. Yeah.
He said,
Right.
well, technically I should give him a ticket, my brother too.
Oh, that's totally.
Play on. He said, hold on.
And
Did he get it? No. And he did. He did.
where that.
If, Aaron comes, you want to start him off first,
But for the.
program? I mean, up to you.
I was gonna say, I don't know.
Everybody.
But I love that because that's.
How do you go out and swap?
You can dress it up.
I like it.
And it's
Well,
fun.
or you would-
I like the orange and it like. Like some holding. I agree.
There's
Right,
another
I think
one
it's-
out
And I
there.
think it's good. That you asked me for my opinion. Well, I did. I did that.
See, building.
I'm glad.
And so I'm building my own AI.
Oh, and
A few years ago.
It's on motor. Yeah. I'll call you back. Love you. Love you. Bye, bye, just back here. Oh.
The
Put in those. In fact, Henry's sweater. You're not getting over that. Not a. I know you want to be close to this campus, but. Yeah. Or. Section. Oh. You're like waiting for. Oh. She didn't sleep.
Happens when you get a lot of kids. Happens when you get in the city.
Listen to. Like coffee. Coffee. Oh, if you throw up, I'll hold your hair.
Hey, that's okay. You may have.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay back in the.
Totally boycott.
Well, because it was a guy.
Oh. You know, can you get those things that you're over me, which I'm gonna go and look at today? Oh, yes, yes. Anytime you get those in, you can set up a time for me. Really go for it. It's like, I literally, but then I was like. Yeah, because, yeah, right. That would be great. Because next year, and,
You know.
be like, I need you to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well.
There's got a plane. I guess.
No.
Oh.
Absolutely.
I cannot actually.
I like it.
We have a good week. That's good. I was like, Henry. So your witness, my happiness, was just. So just tell us that. Anyway. I'll let you know. And so I checked in, they get. Yeah, Lynn had to travel to Europe for his, so she goes to book the ticket. Decided to go over. It's like the tickets, we show up like the mirrors here.
Join me in the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge
Yeah.
allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
And now the rotary four-way test for everything you think, say, or do. First.
Is.
Second.
Is.
Third.
Chips.
Fourth.
Well, you can it's still off. They lie.
All right. So the number one song, February 20th of 2003. Anybody want to guess? Kind of a lame song anyway, so I'm glad you was paying attention. All I Have by Jennifer Lopez. Yeah, I'm sure you remember that one.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, it's one of his on his top list. Number one movie. Anybody want to guess?
What year?
2003. Daredevil by Ben Affleck, or with Ben Affleck.
I'll buy him too.
Seeing that movie. Okay, so do we have any visitors?
Other than our speaker, over here?
No.
Oh, I thought he brought a guest.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't pointing at you two. I was pointing at the guy behind him.
All right, so birthdays. Oh, I already said that one. And we literally have no spouses' birthdays, no birthdays, but anniversaries. We've got Danny and Emily Volkert, 17 years on the 26th. And that's it. There's no Rotary anniversary. So we need Rotary new members to have anniversaries this week. So bring in more people. Okay, so our speaker is going to be Nate Nearing. He's going to give us an update on the Snohomish County government, and we're going to have him start, and then we'll do our reports after he's done. So Nate.
Well, thank you all. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about county government. Brian told me I got a couple of hours, so is everybody coming?
He said 3, not
Oh,
so.
There we go. Okay, great. I'll be brief, but I, again, just really appreciate the opportunity. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, which is awesome, and a lot of new faces, which is great too. So for those who don't know me, I'm Nate Naring. I serve on the Snohomish County Council with Sam Lowe, I think is a part of this group, right?
Yep.
I was just talking with him this morning. Obviously, he's down in Olympia right now doing a great job. And so appreciate everything that Sam does. And we work very closely together. I've been on the council since 2017. Before that, I was in education. I taught middle school science. And so now it's been almost 10 years on the county council, which is hard to believe. And I'll just tell you, I really enjoy and feel blessed to be in working in local government. There's so many great people that are working in local government, whether it's other cities. I see Mayor Gailey in the room. I like to joke that Mayor Gailey is my second favorite mayor. My dad's the mayor of Marysville, so I've got to give him #1. But Brett does a great job in Lake Stevens, and you just got a really professional staff here in the city. And so it's great to get to work with other cities, with our staff at county government, and then of course with different community organizations and nonprofits and others who are just doing phenomenal work throughout the community to move our county forward. And so I just feel really privileged to get to be in this role. I'm going to talk a little bit today about things like our county budget, public safety, economic development, and some other items. And you can feel free to just pop up a hand and interrupt at any time if you have a question, or I'll try to leave some time at the end as well to answer some questions. On the personal side, I live in Arlington. My wife and I do. We're raising our 4 young kids. We've got a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old. No, that's not right. I should know this, shouldn't I? 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-month-old. Got a couple of birthdays this month. So I like to tell people we play the zone defense at home, right? We got the Super Bowl recently, and that's the analogy I like to use. But we have a lot of fun with that. We love living in Snohomish County. We're both lifelong residents and just really enjoy our county and look at this as the place where we want to obviously live and grow our family and want this place to continue to thrive, not just for my family, but for families all throughout the community. And so, again, Nate Naring, and I'll touch on the topics that I had mentioned, but then if there's anything else that you'd like to hear about, I also serve on the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County Board of Trustees, the Lodging Tax Advisory Council, the Conservation Futures Board. So any questions you have related to county government or things going on in Snohomish County, just feel free to ask, and happy to go over that. Let's see here. Yeah, that's what I'm hitting. There we go. Great. So first up is just an overview. This is some demographic information on Snohomish County. So our population right now is just over 870,000 people. Those of you who have lived here for a while understand that we've been experiencing some significant growth, not just in Snohomish County, but in the entire Puget Sound region. So we're currently the 3rd largest county in Washington State, but in short order, we're projected to surpass Pierce County and become the 2nd largest county in Washington State. We've got about 300,000 jobs in Snohomish County, and you can see our top 5 employers here. Shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that the Boeing Company's first, and you've got the tech sector with Microsoft and Amazon, Providence, and then rounded out by Naval Station Everett.
When you count those jobs, is it people that live in Snohomish where they work?
Exactly, yeah. So not necessarily that, obviously Microsoft isn't located in the county, but people who live in our county, this is where they're working. Good clarification. So a couple of months ago in December, we had a significant flooding event that impacted a lot of individuals and property throughout Snohomish County. And you have some stats up here. There were some really significant impacts out east and then up in North County as well, the Arlington, Stanwood areas. So we had an emergency declaration that was issued in early December on the 9th. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I was really inspired by was how many community members and organizations stepped up during this time to say, hey, how can I offer help to neighbors in need, to those who are struggling, whether it's through loss of property or loss of livestock or whatever it may be. Just a couple examples that I experienced personally. The local Walmart near where I live reached out, and the manager had actually gone to their corporate headquarters to try to go above what they're allowed to donate to get gift cards and whatnot for those who are in need. The local Sikh community really stepped up, and they organized a clothing drive and other things for people who were struggling. And so it was just really great, I think, to see so many people and organizations step up to help their neighbors. All right, the county budget. So we all got the best thing to get in the mail recently, right? We got our annual property tax statements. If I was with our county treasurer yesterday, Brian Sullivan, I was giving him a hard time about that. It's a always a fun time of year to get those, and we get lots of calls. And so this is I think, a particularly helpful graphic if you see the pie chart here. So this would be an average property tax statement, right? And you can see it's divided up in lots of different chunks. You've got schools, you've got fire districts, cities and towns, the county, libraries, roads, ports, parks and rec for some areas. And so, you know, this is your entire property tax bill. The amount that goes to the county is typically about 6 cents on the dollar. But the property tax bill is significant, and it's been growing over the years. That's something that I hear quite a bit about as a county council member, is how can we help people out who maybe are seniors living on fixed incomes or are just living paycheck to paycheck, really overburdened by the increasing property taxes we're seeing. And so one of the things that I've tried to make a priority is making sure that we're stretching your tax dollars as far as they can go and really working to live within our means as a local government. And that means that rather than each year just automatically jumping to a property tax increase or whatever it may be, we're taking a really hard look at our budget and combing through every expenditure to see maybe are there areas that we can find savings or efficiencies, or maybe reduce programs that we thought might work but aren't working as they ought to have been. So how do we look at savings first and then go and look and see, well, is there a tax need in order to keep those core functions like your public safety and your roads and whatnot going as planned? And so that's my philosophy, and we've tried to do that over the years. In our county budget, some people are surprised to learn that we actually have a budget of over $3 billion with a B, and that's done biannually, which means that we adopt a budget for a 2-year period. So this coming fall will be one of those years where we adopt the 2-year biennial budget. So if you're interested, would love to have people out to share your thoughts on what sort of areas should be prioritized and any other thoughts, suggestions, or concerns on the budget. Even if you're not necessarily a resident of unincorporated Snohomish County, there are still services which are provided to you. So for example, if you live within the city limits of Lake Stevens, obviously you've got Lake Stevens Police and roads and parks that are servicing you. But you've also got Snohomish County Elections that runs the election system, Superior Court runs the court system, our county prosecutor and whatnot. So there are services that are provided to citizens, whether they live in a city or an unincorporated county. And then, of course, there are also specific services for those who live in unincorporated areas, like our county sheriff, our county parks, our county roads, and whatnot. Yes. Great question. So if you look at your property tax bill, you'll see both of those listed on there. There's a portion of your property tax bill that goes to the state, right? And then that gets allocated at the state level. There's a portion that goes directly to your local school district. So in this case, Lake Stevens. And so all of it's going towards schools, but some of it's going directly to your local school district. Some of it's going to the state to be distributed. Does that make sense? Oh, great. Well, you better. Yeah, you can.
We have no opportunity to vote on that. That is set by the state and that is collected. But the local tax, that's where our local folks have an opportunity to vote. And that's what we did last week for the levy technology and for EPL, which is educational programs and operations. So that's the difference.
Very good. Yeah, thank you.
Did that state school system also go all the way through the college level for the state community college system?
No, not my understanding is this is just for local schools. Yeah, there's separate funding that goes for our community college and universities that are publicly operated in the state. We also have, I should add before I leave the slide, an online budget tool. So if you're kind of a budget geek like I am, you can use this tool, which takes you to the county website. You can see in pretty good detail, both on the revenue side, our property taxes and sales taxes and state and federal grants. We have some departments that are almost entirely grant funded, like our Human Services Department or Department of Emergency Management. So you can see all the funding works, but then also on the expenditure side, at a program level, department by department, where your tax dollars are going. So if you're interested, would encourage you to check that out. All right, let's talk a little bit about public safety. So the stats here are from the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office, and they show different crime stats from 2025 compared to the prior year. And as you'll see, some of them went up, some of them went down. There was an article in the newspaper recently that showed that crime is slightly down. So I think that's just an overall look at crime, which of course is good news. One of the things that I try to do on at least a quarterly basis is to get out with our deputies and do ride-alongs. And this is for a couple of reasons. One, it's great to get out with our staff and just see what they're doing and maybe where there are gaps, where things are going well. And that helps to inform me as a policymaker when it comes either to budget time or when we're considering changes to the law. How can we change things to give our law enforcement and others the tools to do what they need to do. Just to give one example, when I first started on the council, we were having all sorts of issues with chronic nuisance properties. So these are properties usually where there's like junkyard conditions, environmental hazards, often squatters on site and illegal activity. And so we had, our health department and sheriff's office and code enforcement and others, trying to work to get this resolved, but there wasn't anything in code that had any teeth, right, to deal with the situation. And so through ride-alongs with these groups and through understanding, the work that they're doing, what's working, what's not, we were able to work together and get an ordinance introduced and passed called the Chronic Nuisance Ordinance, which does give them some teeth to track these things and to take it through court if needed. And so that's been really helpful in getting some of these properties cleaned up. It continues to be a challenge just because of the volume of these properties that there are in unincorporated county. But that's just one example of how these ride-alongs have helped to inform what's now county policy. I try to get out to different groups. And so, we've got an embedded social worker program, which I'm a huge fan of. So this is a team of law enforcement and social workers, which goes out usually into encampments or areas where individuals are struggling with homelessness and oftentimes substance abuse or a mental illness. And they work to help those individuals and get them connected with services and get them back onto their feet and into a healthy and sustainable lifestyle. And so I'm a huge fan of that team's work. Also, more recently, I was out with our K-9 unit, and that was a fun time because they pulled over into an open field and they said, why don't we get out here and you throw on this cast on your arm? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And then the dog comes out and they let him loose. I'm like, oh, this is what's happening, right? So that was a fun time. But it's just great, whether it's our sheriff's deputies or our social workers, to get to see the great professionalism that our local staff do and the great service that they're providing to the community. One of the struggles that we're having, and I don't think this is unique to Snohomish County, I think there's counties and probably cities across the state that are dealing with this, is a really difficult time recruiting and retaining qualified law enforcement personnel. I'm sure there's several reasons for this. One of them is certainly that a couple of years ago, you had a lot of state legislation which was passed that made it just a bit more difficult to do law enforcement work in the state. As a result of that, you saw a lot of police officers leaving the state to other states or taking early retirements or maybe doing career changes. We saw a lot of people retire early and leave from the sheriff's office. And as you can imagine, when you've got a growing population in Washington state, every city and county is looking to hire new police officers, but you've got a dwindling pool of applicants. It makes it really challenging to both recruit new people who are coming up through the pipeline and retain qualified staff. And so, as you can see, we've got 40 plus vacancies in our patrol, and we have a large sheriff's office. So, but that's a significant issue, and it's not due to lack of funding. The funding is there to hire deputies and on the corrections side at the jail. It's purely an issue of that dwindling applicant pool and trying to compete with all these other cities and counties who are also looking for those. So, if you know of anybody who's in law enforcement or interested in going into it, have them talk to me, and we'd love to get them on board at the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office.
We had the
Yes.
sheriff here about a year ago. She said that really the big bottleneck in law enforcement was a lack of prosecutors. Any changes there? Any improvement in the prosecutor's office and their ability to help law enforcement?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So she's probably talking about the lack of not necessarily on the staffing side, but crime is committed. What stops us from justice occurring? And I would say at the prosecutor's office, that is probably an area, one of the bigger areas of need. One of them is law enforcement officers and, making the arrest. Prosecutors is another. And then I would add a third, which is our court system. There are a lot of times where we have somebody who is arrested, who is prosecuted, but then, it's taken to court and they're either let off or, there's a lot of lenient decisions that are made where you have recidivism happening. So I think that's also a big issue. But yeah, our prosecutor's office, just due to our county funding structure, could certainly use additional resources. I think they're working very hard within the resources that they have right now to prosecute crimes. But, when you've got a limited number of staff and number of crimes happening in the community, then the result is you have to be selective about making sure that you're prosecuting the most serious crimes. So yeah, I think there certainly could be additional resources to the prosecutor's office, and that would help with that. Good question. Yeah.
Funded, you have the Washington State Supreme Court lowered was it 200 to 1 cases for a defense attorney down to 50 to 1. So what then happens is now you're pot of money for for defense, or court services goes from the prosecutor to the defense attorney side. So now you have to have more, like our bill for defense attorneys went up 30% this year.
Which is totally unsustainable for any local government, right? And Mayor Gailey is exactly right. That's probably the biggest issue that local governments face, especially this year. So obviously everybody has a constitutional right to public defense. That's very important. What the state Supreme Court did when they lowered caseload standards is they said public defenders should not be working over X amount of cases to ensure that they can do their job adequately. Well, the same was not done for prosecutors. And so you've got prosecutors who sort of have an unlimited number of cases. Public defenders are now limited. And the result, as Mayor Gailey said, is when you're having to shift funding to hire more public defenders, takes resources away from the rest of the criminal justice system, prosecutors, deputies, the court system. And what that means is, unless you've got a huge injection of money, which nobody has 30% laying around to throw toward the issue. So unless there's a big injection of money, it means less cases being tried, being prosecuted, because you don't have the resources to do so. And I think that's a really big issue. We're working really hard. I know the Association of Washington Cities and the Washington State Association of Counties is advocating at the state level for the state to take on some of this burden, because it is a state mandate. Really, the state is telling us this needs to be done without providing additional resources to do it. And so we're hopeful that the state will come in and take at least some of that burden on, so that we can continue to have a criminal justice system that works in our communities. But yeah, I think that's the big issue in the legislature this year for local government. So we'll see what happens. Homelessness and addiction, a separate issue from public safety, but so often interrelated, right? When we see visible homelessness, I think, from my experience out with the social workers and talking with folks who are in this sphere doing this work day in and day out, visible homelessness is almost always tied in some way to either a substance abuse issue or a mental health problem. That's not to say that there's individuals struggling with homelessness who are in that situation for another reason, domestic violence or financial instability or whatever it may be. Typically, those individuals are not visibly home. They're couch surfing, living in their car, whatnot, which is a tragic situation. We need to make sure that we're helping those folks and providing resources for them. But the homelessness that we see out on the streets is typically associated with one of these issues. And then oftentimes, there are public safety or quality of life issues associated with that, whether it's individuals who are committing property crimes or breaking into vehicles in order to, to steal and sell something to feed a substance abuse issue or whatever it may be. And so all this to say, I think the approach when it comes to homelessness and addiction, which is an issue which plagues counties and cities all across the state, all across the country, nobody is free from this issue. We all need to work on what to do to help those in need, and also to protect our community from the public safety concerns. But if we focus solely on housing, I think we're missing the boat a little bit, right? Housing is certainly a really important component. If somebody's homeless, we need to have steps to get them into stable housing so that they can get back onto their feet into a healthy and sustainable lifestyle. But if all we do is build housing and take somebody who's struggling with a fentanyl addiction or a mental health issue, and we say, hey, we're going to take you off the street, put you into your own unit, and you're good to go, we've done nothing to solve the issue, right? Other than really just warehouse those people. If there's not a treatment component and a component that says we're going to wrap services around you and we're going to work with you to overcome that addiction, begin the process of recovery, job training, all those things to help get you back on your feet and again, be sustainable, then I think we've missed the ball. So I think our approach to this issue really has to incorporate all those things: housing, treatment, job training, all of it. And that's why it's really important to me that when we're looking at county dollars or when we're applying for state and federal grant funds, it's not just housing, but also behavioral health. How can we invest in new facilities and invest in treatment programs and all of these things to be able to have sort of a holistic approach to addressing this issue of homelessness and addiction? And I'm proud of a lot of the work that the county has done in this area, but there's still certainly a ways to go, as we all see. And so this is, I think, the biggest issue we face as a local government, certainly in Snohomish County and probably in other communities as well. And so it's one that we'll continue to work at. But just wanted to highlight that. I think the important distinction there. Yes.
Right. Wow. And since 2022, there's been no change.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you think enforcement needs to come in? Because we can give people all kinds of
Yep.
opportunities, but I walk through these drug camps while people are eating up their soup one spoon at a time. And they have no desire.
Right.
To be out of that. So if there's not enforcement, what's the incentive to get them to change their behavior?
No, it's a good question. You hit the nail on the head. I think you have communities, I mean, just to give one example, like the city of Seattle, right, which takes a very lenient approach where they have services that are available, but there's very little enforcement happening. And then you have other places, maybe in different areas of the country, where there aren't really services provided, but there's a lot of enforcement. So people are cycling through jail on a 24-hour basis back on the street. I don't know that either of those work. I think you have to have an approach which leads with compassion, has services available, but backs that up with enforcement, like you said. And so, like the embedded social worker program that I mentioned earlier, I think it's perfect to have, the law enforcement officer there and the social worker, so that you can go to somebody and say, hey, we can get you right now off the street into a program, get a roof over your head. But if you say no, and you've got an outstanding warrant, then you're going to get a pair of handcuffs and a trip to jail, because we can't afford to have our community continue to suffer from, these property crimes and all the other things that are associated with this issue. So it has to be that two-pronged approach where we have the treatment available. We want you to do that. We're going to encourage you to do that, but we're going to have a law enforcement component if you're unwilling to do that. Because, I think this idea that, we just need to be really compassionate. We do need to be really compassionate, but true compassion, right, is not letting somebody live on the street, defecate on the street, and just, inject themselves with heroin or do fentanyl and overdose under bridges and whatnot. There's nothing compassionate about that, about just saying, well, let's leave those people to themselves. Let's not bother them. I think true compassion is, again, offering those services. But if somebody, in this state of mind, which anybody who's gone out with a social worker who works in this space understands that for somebody who's struggling with a substance abuse issue, they're not in the state of mind to make good decisions to themselves, right? They're oftentimes, when I go out, 99% are unwilling to say, yeah, I'll take on treatment or housing or whatever. They want to continue living on the street, continue using, which is tragic. It's very sad. So the question is, well, if they're not in a place of mind to make those decisions for themselves, then what's our responsibility as a community or as law enforcement or as social services to help encourage them to make those decisions? And I think one of the ways to do that is by offering that two-pronged approach of saying, look, it's either services or it's a trip to jail, but what we're not going to tolerate as a community is you continuing to live on the street and harm yourself and potentially harm others. And so I think that's really critical that we have that approach. You don't see that approach everywhere, but I do think most communities in Snohomish County agree that that is the way to go.
There is a case out there. Brennan's son with a weed whacker, and he went out in front of him with a firearm.
Wow.
And still on his property, agitated, but ordered 2 rounds in front of the guy.
Wow.
So much PD came out. Well, we see where he's living, but there's nothing we can do. And it took months to get that guy moved, but it included me going over there and having a chat with him. Paying him to move to the other side of Highway 9.
Wow.
And he wouldn't do anything. It literally took that homeowner saying, I am going to kill this man because I can see that he is still coming on my property. He's here when I'm not home, my family was home. And it took months and months and months. And I will email all that to you because I think people in your position need to know the things that I got all the compassion in the world for somebody that's down, but I got a lot more compassion than my neighbors.
Yeah, no, I'd love to get that information and be able to look at it more. Yeah, that sounds like an awful situation. Thankfully, it sounds like it was resolved, but a very difficult resolution, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's awful. If I can share just one quick story. When this approach was implemented, and this is, both at the county, but also in cities that are taking this approach, when I go out on ride-alongs, people would say, oh, I'm here from Seattle. I've moved here. I know you're not going to actually arrest me. And then when they were, when handcuffs were put on them and they're put into jail, they understood that, this is taken seriously and it's sort of a different approach than they might see in other places. There was one specific individual where this happened. There was offered services, declined the services, was arrested because he had outstanding warrants, put into jail. And then when in jail, this individual came and said, okay, I understand, you know, that you're serious now. I do want to accept the treatment that's being offered. And so the social workers went into the jail and of course they did connect him with those services, give him a second chance. It was years later, I was out, actually it was on the campaign trail, and I was out waving signs at State and by the Mod Pizza in Marysville. And this guy comes up to me and he says, hey, I just want you to know I got out of jail. Went through the treatment program. I'm clean and sober. I'm reunited with my wife and my kids who I was away from, coaching my kids' sports teams. And that made all the difference in the world, right? Like that's the kind of story that you want to hear. It's those success stories of somebody who has been at the very bottom, you know, close to overdose and death, and through, you know, what's being offered to them and through the system of compassion, but followed up with an enforcement arm, kind of that tough love approach, that individual was helped. Whereas if we had taken the approach of, well, he declined treatment, let's leave him on the street, probably would have overdosed and died, right? That would have been the end of that case. And so I think there are clear examples where this approach works, but if you don't have that accountability component, there's really no incentive for somebody who's not in the right frame of mind to go and get that help. Yes, question. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a number off the top of my head because there's so many different programs. You know, different cities in the county have embedded social worker programs, and they're sent to different behavioral health facilities, different housing. So I don't have one number, but I can get that for you. I'm sure our Human Services Department does. I think the recidivism is high. You know, certainly not everybody who goes into a treatment program is going to come out clean and sober. And that's the nature of substance abuse, is that it's so addictive and so difficult to overcome. So there are high recidivism rates, but there are a lot of success stories, and I would say a lot more success than maybe other approaches. So I can get you an exact number from our Human Services team if maybe I can get your email address afterward. Yeah, thank you. Let's see. Okay. Economic development. So few things on here that I'll go through. First is Painfield Airport. So one of the big assets that we have in Snohomish County is Painfield, and specifically commercial air service at Painfield. Just by show of hands, how many in the room have flown out of Pain? Oh, wow, that's almost all of us. So what do we think? Yeah, awesome. That's what we like to hear. Yeah, right. Yeah, yes, I agree. We certainly need more flights. Yeah, so I have the same experience. Anytime I can fly out of Pain instead of battling traffic down to SeaTac and sitting at the airport for 2-3 hours, you know, Painfield, you're there, 20 minutes, you're through and waiting to get on the flight. And so I think it's a great opportunity for Snohomish County residents for commercial service. It also really puts us on the map, both nationally and internationally, for economic development, for businesses to come in and locate here and have good family wage jobs here in Snohomish County. One of the things that not everybody knows is that the airport itself, the land is owned by Snohomish County government, but the airport is privately owned and operated. So it's a lease agreement. It's a public-private partnership. So Propeller brought in over $40 million of private investment to turn that into the beautiful facility that it is. It's won lots of statewide and national awards for excellence. And that's been a great partnership. It's a one of its kind, you know, unique partnership in the country. And we're very proud of Painfield and what it's become and where it's going. Obviously, you know, having an airport open right before COVID hits is not ideal, you know, and what that did to flights and all that. But now as we're coming out of that and flights continue to increase, we did recently adopt a long-term master plan for the airport that includes an expansion, so additional gates, and that means additional flights, hopefully additional airlines. And so I think both in the near term and in the long term, you should see additional flight destinations throughout the country, additional airlines, and like I said, additional gates being built over the years to increase capacity. And so we're really excited about that. You know, there was an effort done at the state level to add another SeaTac somewhere. And we said, well, that's not quite what we are, right? We're not going to be another SeaTac. And every other community said that too. And so sort of the decision that ended up being made at the state level is we'll spread things around. And so you will see additional flights available, again, both in the near term and in the long term, which I'm really excited about. The RAP program is something else I wanted to touch on. Is anybody familiar with the RAP program? Okay, a couple of us are. And I don't know if the Lake Stevens School District is, yeah, I think Lake Stevens is an MOU partner, which is great. We really appreciate. So just a little bit of background. I mentioned that before getting onto the county council, I was in education and really enjoy that work. And so one of the first things I noticed when I came onto the county council and this is not a local issue, it's an issue throughout our country, but we have a sort of a national dilemma of pushing all of our young people to the four-year college system or university system. And that's a great career pathway, or I should say entry into a career for a lot of people. That's the route I took. I went to four-year university. Works out great for lots of people. Doesn't work out for everybody, right? There are a lot of great post-secondary options that don't involve college, whether that's the trades, whether that's entrepreneurship or the military or whatever else it may be. There are some great careers that pay well, have good benefits, and don't require a four-year college degree. And so, I saw this and a lot of other people, have obviously been talking about it. And so we worked with local school districts, labor groups, and businesses to create what's called the Regional Apprenticeship Pathways Program. And what this does is it essentially takes like the Running Start model. We're familiar with Running Start. And so a student will spend half of their day at their sending school districts. Let's say there's a Lake Stevens student, he'll be at, he or she will be at Caballero or Lake Stevens for first half of their day. And then they would go to the RAP Center, which is located at Marysville-Pilchuck High School for the second half of their day. And during that half of the day, they'd be working with their hands, doing the construction trades, doing OSHA certification and safety work, and preparing themselves for a career in the trades. And why that's so important is because you look at the labor shortage we have in the construction and the building trades. A large part of that is when people go into those careers, typically, they'll graduate high school and they're not quite sure what to do. So they'll either, go to college, but not finish college, or maybe they'll work in minimum wage jobs or whatnot. And eventually, over a decade or so, they'll find themselves into an apprenticeship and get into the trades. So how do we stop the average age of somebody entering an apprenticeship from being 28 and kind of put that back to a younger age? So there's, more opportunity for these young people. Well, I think getting into the high schools and hopefully even at younger ages at some point is the way to do that, to get that exposure to young people and say, look, this is a career that can pay well, can have good benefits, and is a great fit for people who like to work with their hands and, can really thrive in this. And so I'm super proud of this program. It's grown quite a bit. Started at just 25 students. Now it's quadrupled. There's 100 students a year. And the state legislature, the governor, and the superintendent of OSBI all came in within the last year and said this program is a model for all of Washington State. So last year, the legislature actually adopted a bill that would take this as a model and cite other programs like it throughout the state. And so that's just awesome to see. Students who graduate from the RAP program get a high school diploma, they get a college credential from Everett Community College. And then the really key part is they get either preferred or direct entry into a state certified apprenticeship program from one of the dozen plus apprenticeship programs that are partnered with RAP. So right after high school, they go straight into an apprenticeship and then on to a successful career in the trades. And so again, that's something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm really excited about that. Yes, questions? It's a good question. It's just Snohomish County. So it started here in the Marysville School District. We wanted to make sure it was available to students countywide. So there are most school districts in the county, I think, have an MOU agreement where their students can participate, but it is exclusive to Snohomish County right now. And that's why that state effort to take this as a model and implement it elsewhere has essentially expanded it, although they're technically different programs. Yeah, good question.
Also, who are partners that are doing County, so that are building on Junior 8 to do remodels, so that we can also explore apprenticeships for our students to be apprenticing with those builders.
That's awesome.
And want to build our buildings. And we're to build our buildings.
Yeah.
Kids, they have to turn away for this program.
Yeah, good question. I should have mentioned that. And that's, I think, the biggest issue here, the biggest barrier. The RAP program has to turn away as many students as they accept, so about 50%. They have staff that go into the sending school districts or the MOU partners and get out applications and talk to students about whether they're interested and want to apply. And typically twice the amount of applicants to the capacity. And so, like I said, there has been growth. We started at just one 25 student cohort. Now there's up to 100 students that can participate in the program. But without additional funding, there's no way to grow that. And frankly, the building that they're using probably can't handle more than it is right now. So you'd probably need another location. But that is something that's been on our radar. We were actually going to go to the legislature this past session with an ask, but due to the financial situation the state's in, we thought it's probably not the appropriate time to make that ask. But I anticipate at some point in the future that will happen. Great question. So the vision is that it's 2 years, is that somebody participates for 2 years. They could do it for just 1 year. Yeah. So there's a RAP 1 and a RAP 2, and they're different different curriculum. Yep, good question. Yes.
So do you know why, Frontier Airlines came in and out so fast, I think?
Good question. I don't know that for sure. I can guess. So there has been, right now we're limited to 23 flights a day, and obviously you've got Alaska there. I think when you're limited to that number of flights and you have already a partner that is doing a lot of those flights, it makes it pretty challenging for another airline to come in and make economic sense. So obviously Frontier came in pretty quickly, and that's happened with others too, like Southwest. So I think in order to have an airline come in and to keep them, we're going to need to have additional flights, and that means additional gates, which will happen in short order. Again, that airport master plan calls for new gates. This talks about 4 new terminal gates, but we can go up to 12 at the end of the master plan. So as we add gates and flight capacity, it'll make it more sustainable for airlines to come and to stay. But so again, that's just my guess. I haven't actually talked with Frontier, and the county's not involved in those conversations because it's a private partner, but that would be my guess. Yeah, James.
Why is it 23?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's just capacity. The number of gates that we have limits that, is my understanding. I'll have to double check on that for you. All I know is when we opened Payne Field, it was clear it's 23 flights in and out per day with the amount of gates that we have. Yeah. Yes, there's 2 gates right now. It's a long-term master plan, so there isn't a strict timeline on this. Says 4 gates, at this year 4 gates will be open, but it starts now. So right now the process has started for financing and looking at design and how to build out the airport. But when that'll be finished, when we'll have a full 12 gates built out, we don't have an exact time frame for that. Yeah, good question.
Hey, Nate, real quick.
Yes.
For EAFC, we do fly-in to DC with ESC every May. We like to take business owners and elected officials, get people who think they're super important. And that's how I get it going. And we go back to DC, we meet with elected officials as well as some of the departments back there. So really cool collaboration with the network. If you're interested in going on that.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. It's a great opportunity. Yeah, question.
I was gonna ask, is the aid with the trades program to get to the point where everybody who applies gets in, or is there a strategy to keep some amount of selection bias? So that the kids are thinking, oh, I need to do something in my life to be able to qualify for this.
No, the goal is to have capacity to allow everybody who's interested. I will say though, when this program started, and this is unfortunate, but you had, and I don't know if this is at the student level, at the counselor level, but you had essentially students applying who weren't necessarily interested in the program, whether they were being directed by somebody else to apply because they weren't doing well in the traditional education system, or why that was happening. It was students who were not, again, just not interested in the program. They were applying for different reasons. That we don't want, right? We want students who are interested in this and who want to succeed. That doesn't mean that they need to meet some sort of criteria, but we want that passion to be there. So that's, I get, but the answer to your question is no, it's not intentional to reject students. We want to make sure that every student who wants to be there is able to be there. It's purely a capacity issue, both with staff and with, like I said, the building can't take more. So if we can get additional resources from the state level or from some other place, then the vision would be to build out, to add capacity so that as many students as apply could be served. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yes, they are. Yep. Mm-hmm.
They also are list. So
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out what can we do locally in our school district right here to offer those kind of opportunities that prepare students before they move to RAP
Right.
or to Snowhouse, so they have the right pathway. Anyway.
No, that's great. And high school is a great place to start, but like you mentioned, if we can get in at an even younger age, that's even better. And I'm glad you brought up Snow Isle. They're a tremendous partner doing very similar work. And when we started the RAP program, there were a lot of questions like, well, is this going to compete or take away from Snow Isle? And Snow Isle is also having, I think, capacity issues. And like I mentioned, RAP is turning away half of the applicants. And so there's a need for more of these programs, right? And so the more that we can have like RAP and Snow Isle, I think the better for our young people. One other thing I'll mention on this slide, so Mayor Gailey had brought up Economic Alliance Snohomish County. I had the privilege of serving as the council rep on the board of trustees there. EAFC was going through a very difficult time, I think anybody will tell you, a couple of years back. Brought on Ray Stephenson, who's the former mayor of Everett, in December of 24, so a little over a year ago now. And he's done just a tremendous job of, I think, righting the ship, getting that organization turned around. And we really want EASC, which is our countywide economic development organization, to be focused on supporting businesses that are here and then recruiting new businesses to bring jobs to our community. And so they've made that a priority, which is fantastic. They also have, I think, somewhat of a new effort to support local chambers, local businesses in communities that maybe EASC wasn't present in before. So if you are a business owner or know of a business owner that EASC can help, feel free to contact them with or put them in contact with me or Brett or somebody else, and we'll make sure to make that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, the chamber has with now.
Oh, great. That's great to hear. Yeah, that's new then.
Yeah.
Awesome.
They had a meeting about 2 months ago with all the chambers, and they required an MOU.
Yeah.
And so we signed that, and we're on board with that too. So we're a member of their organization, they're a member of our chamber.
That's great. Love to hear it. That's awesome.
I'll just say that our small business.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. If you don't mind, I'll share that with the board. That's great to hear. Thank you. All right. So this summer, and I'm going to go quickly here because I want to make sure I'm keeping on time. But this summer, we've got a couple of major events coming. Some of you may have heard of just this little soccer event that happens every 4 years called the World Cup. Obviously, that's coming to the Puget Sound region here. We're going to have 6 games in Seattle and 7 games in Vancouver. And a lot of challenges come with that in terms of traffic congestion and whatnot, but a lot of opportunity too for our community, where you're going to have just a ton of people coming in from other states, from other countries, and hopefully spending their money and stimulating the local economy here. And the vision is, how can we get people to come here to Snohomish County as a part of that event, spend their money here, support our local businesses, but also make a good impression so that after the World Cup is over, they're going to come back one day. They're going to want to come back to Snohomish County and visit again. And so I'm excited about that event. And then similar time frame as America 250, the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country, which I'm very excited about. We have a number of different events to celebrate America 250 happening in communities across the county. I don't know if in Lake Stevens specifically what's happening here, but I've heard like Monroe and Stanwood and different areas are all hosting their own celebrations, which is awesome. And so it'll be a big summer with these things happening, and I'm really excited about that. One of the big focuses on the county council recently has been family-friendly initiatives and childcare and wellness. As you can see, I'm taking a pie to the face here from a young person at our first family day at Snohomish County, which was a lot of fun. And so we've talked a lot about, both as an employer, how can we be more family-friendly for employees and use that as sort of an incentive for retention, but also as a community service provider, how can we provide more community events and opportunities for families and individuals to come together and just build that community in Snohomish County. So there are some examples here. One of the things that always gets brought up is childcare and the lack of affordability in childcare, lack of access. And so we've been doing some work there. A lot of childcare is regulated at the state level. But one of the things that we were able to do is I co-sponsored a piece of legislation that made siting and permitting childcare facilities in Snohomish County just a little bit easier, more flexible to do that based on input from those in the industry. And so that was one step we took. And then we have had some additional facilities and early learning centers opening. I'm on the board at the YMCA, and the YMCA opened a new early learning center at the Marysville location this past year. And so, small steps, but steps in the right direction to try to make childcare more affordable and accessible. Environmental conservation. We hear a lot about the growth that's happening in Snohomish County and the pressure that puts on, whether it's traffic or land use or our schools. And I share those concerns, just to be frank. I think, growth brings a lot of challenges with it. One of the challenges it brings is taking land that was farmland, forest land, or open space or habitat and converting that land or changing the use. And so one of the things that we've been able to do through the Snohomish County Conservation Futures Program, which is a board that I have the privilege of chairing, is preserve over 500 acres just this past year of open space. So how that works is, I mentioned on your property tax bill, about 6 cents on the dollar goes toward county government. A fraction of that 6 cents goes toward the Conservation Futures Program. And the board comes together and solicits grant applications for areas of, like I said, farmland, forest land, open space habitat. And then we use those dollars to purchase and place a conservation easement on that land so that it's protected from future development. So that's one thing we do to help in this area. Also, at the bottom here, I had the opportunity to host a youth beach cleanup at Kayak Point this past summer. It was just an idea that somebody had brought forward. So we said, we'll try it out. We'll see if anybody shows up. We had over 70 young people show up for this event, clean up 150 pounds of debris and trash from the beach. So that was great to see. You know, one, it's great to see the effort on conservation, but also so many young people being willing to come out and get involved was awesome. So we hope to repeat that event this summer and hopefully into the future.
So we use owners to purchase, for example, or we're gonna do the street. We use that, those.
Awesome. Yeah, great example. Thanks. I won't go through each of these just due to time, but these are some county parks projects that are on the agenda for 2026. And I can share the slide deck with anybody who's interested. That's a good question. I don't have the answer to it. So it is okay. Let me get your email and I'll follow up with you on that. I'll chat with our parks director. Yeah, I do not know. I'm not just because that's outside of my district. I'm not sure what's happening with that, but I can follow up with you after I talk with the parks director. Yeah. And then here are some roads projects. Again, won't go through each of these. One I will point out is 84th. So some people probably travel this road. We're in this room, but that's the road between kind of Marysville, Grant Falls, Lake Stevens area. We've had a lot of safety and traffic flow issues on that road. Obviously, it's a high-speed road, very little shoulder width, and then a lot of turning on intersections into traffic, which has caused lots of accidents. And so our Public Works Department is in the midst of conducting a safety study on this road. And I anticipate what will happen is you'll see a speed limit reduction, probably from 50 to 40, like they did on 67th Avenue. And then you have roundabouts that are going in. One's already complete, kind of in the Grant Falls area. There's another scheduled for either this year or next year at 123rd and 84th. And then some other traffic safety and traffic flow improvements happening at that road. But that's a big priority just because of all the safety and flow issues that we've been having. So looking forward to that project being completed. This is the last slide, and then if there's time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Talked a lot and thrown a lot of info at you about county budget, different policy work. But I'll tell you, one of the things that's most fulfilling about this job is getting to talk about civil discourse. And I have the privilege of having colleagues who share this passion. And so we've had the opportunity to go into different high schools and other places and talk about the importance of the civil discourse. You know, we're at a place in our country nationally, and I would say even sometimes at the state level, where you have just a lot of ugliness in politics, and that comes from both sides of the aisle. I don't think that that's something that's helpful to pass on to younger generations. You know, if we want our young people to become future leaders and go into government, go into civics, and lead our communities and our country into the future, I think we've got to demonstrate that, you know, it's good work that can happen, and it doesn't just have to be sort of the nastiness that we see so often in politics. And so when we go out into schools and other places, what we like to talk about is the importance of mutual respect and recognizing the humanity in other people. Just because somebody has a different political belief from you doesn't mean you have to hate them or think that they're an awful person. You know, they're just somebody who has a different idea of how to achieve what's usually a common goal, right? All of us want our communities to thrive and move forward, but we sometimes have different ideas on how to get there. So it's okay to disagree with somebody on that, shake hands and say, we disagree here, but let's find another area of common ground that maybe we can work together on. And so just really appreciated getting to do this work and work with young people. So if any of you know of a group that might be interested in having these conversations, feel free to connect with me, and I'm happy to see if we can arrange something. I want to thank you all so much for your time. I know I've taken up quite a bit of time, so thank you so much. And if there is any leftover time, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll defer on.
Once.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And your dad's my favorite hero.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
If you want to hear it, again, you can come to the paper on March 11th.
All right. We'll go through our reports real quick. Gary, do you have anything?
Just the board meeting on March 11th, and then just remember that if you want to, the annual legislative meeting in March, for the county, if you wanna, or for the district, if you wanna sign up to it.
So in other words, everything's okay?
Yeah.
There you go, okay. Does anybody else have anything that's on the board to say? Nothing? Okay.
We do have a firefight coming up on March 4th. I know it's short notice, but things are busy. We're gonna do it at Rustic Fork this time. No, it's the 4th of March. Having it at Rustic Fork, I know we've been doing stuff at Dweller, so I thought we shared the love. It's from 4:30 to 6:30. Come and have a glass of wine, or just come and stop by, have a snack, whatever. It's open to the club, so feel free. Oh, and it's not, it's a no host situation.
Ron, what's your joke, buddy?
A joke? Oh.
Yeah.
What do you call a redneck pickle?
No, a dillbilly.
You know, we're doing this. That's what we're gonna do.
Really failed at that.
Oh, come on.
But here's not right. Any educator teacher, what do you call a teacher who doesn't art class?
Oh.
A private tutor.
Gotta get rid of these jokes. James, you wanna do our happy bucks?
My wife would be mortified if I.
Maybe we should let her know.
These are recorded.
So
for those of you who engage with our youth of the community, we have a new card for the scholarship application. So if you want them, we pass out, I mean, as we go by. Are you happy, sir?
I'm just happy it's Friday. It's sunny outside.
Excellent. Morning. Happy.
Happy Friday. Go through things tomorrow, excited for it, it's pretty good, and I did the strong hand. We did bring out I'm not the strongest, but.
Oh, my.
I'm happy that I was in Arizona last week visiting my dad, my family.
Where were down there?
I was, it was in the 70s. Yes.
Adopt a stream yesterday, a couple of weeks ago. It was fabulous. It was so welcoming. It was gorgeous. It was so much learning. I could have been there for 30 minutes, but I stayed for 2 hours and I got to talk to the director, Tom. And it was so interesting from my perspective as a planning commissioner, which I have so much to learn, but it's really neat to learn about watershed and how important it is and so anyways, I was like, I'm still really.
We have a triple line for you, sir.
That's probably just less his son, so.
This weekend.
It's really been fun this last week, learning how to eat with your left hand. Especially if you're eating spaghetti or.
Yeah, in this next Friday, we're going to Cheney. Say why you want to go to Cheney. Cheney is kind of like Pullman. The reason why it exists is because there's university. So I graduated from there, hang out with a bunch of my ROTC graduate buddies and go to my graduate and go to basketball.
We go Terriers at breakfast last week. It's gone a little bit. All right, I've got 5. Ray Stevens Community. All right. For the sports on the PO levy and the tech levy, that is so critical for our sport. I just want to have it real fast that on that locally collected tax that you saw, that's for all Snohomish County school districts. Ours is one of the lowest rate on that, so I like that. Thank you, everybody. Happy Friday.
Well,
I've got $20 a happy bucks, mainly because nobody was here, so I have tickets today, so I can pay my 4 feet.
Yeah.
But just I want to remind you, to follow Jesus to go Church, so anybody want to join us, 9:30 or 11 at Lake Stevens Middle School, Anchor Point Church. There you go. Thank you. Eileen.
I'm happy it's Friday and I'm happy. It's great to meet you. I'm very grateful for our garage.
I'm happy for you. I just realized that they're gonna take 50 years out, looking for California. Wow. That's really cool.
Well, that's far behind you. All right, good morning to the folks online. Kendra, are you happy this morning? Maybe. How about Daniel? They're listening in the background. All right. Fran.
Well, I want to match Paul's $20.
Get
Of
it.
course, I have to admit this is Bob's $20. And here's my 5, that's it. We've been chuckling all meeting about it.
Yeah, we jump around like a fool. Well, I was just happy it's Friday and looking forward to a great weekend and I want to thank everybody for coming out to our new thrift store. It's going really great. And we're starting into our next quarter of giving. So if you have anything you want to give, we are accepting donations every day of the week and then help take some things home. Yes, thank you.
The next quarter.
It is Sherwood Surplus. Yes. And then after that is the senior center.
Awesome. Good morning. You happy?
I'm very happy to be here. Happy to be alive.
Glad to have you here.
I'm happy you're alive.
Very happy, for, Paige to go take 2 more days.
Right.
Thank you for our speaker and everybody.
Give us the next weekend. I know they're giving.
Eileen?
Yep.
What do you got?
I still think that.
Hang on, I got it.
Need a good interactive encounter.
More is lost by indecision than the wrong decision.
Mm.
Cicero.
All right, go out and make good decisions. Bye, online people.